A former bookkeeper who embezzled almost $500,000 from a Christian school faced a judge in federal court. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Erin Sullivan.
And I'm Brian Mastry. Our investigation first revealed details of the shocking theft. And tonight's exclusive, First Alert 6 investigator Mike McKnight is there for the sentencing and the emotional scene afterwards.
After her sentencing in federal court, Joya Kenny gets hugs of comfort from about 60 friends, family, and church members. They declined interviews and instead let a shielding circle around Kenny do their talking.
If you guys want to follow me, you're welcome to.
All right, thank you. Despite the strong support in and out of court, a federal judge wasn't so forgiving in sentencing Joya Kenny. The former bookkeeper for Cornerstone Christian School in Bellevue must spend 9 months in federal prison and then 3 years supervised release.
You want to say anything? Nothing? Okay.
She did everything that I could ever ask a client to do in terms of accepting responsibility. She's begun the process of making restitution in this case. And as you heard in court today, she made a tearful and sorrowful apology.
For 7 years as bookkeeper, Joya Kenny embezzled $452,000 from Cornerstone Christian School, money that didn't go towards student education, but instead to pay personal credit card debt, Amazon purchases shipped somewhere else, and $250,000 deposited in Kenny's account using falsified bank entries.
I think the judge did a very nice job of balancing what justice required with grace and mercy in this case. I credit Joya for being accountable for her actions.
Two parents of former students became suspicious and one contacted the FBI. Both attended the sentencing, though kept their distance from the Kenny supporters.
So I would have to say that the sentence seems just and that I forgive her for what she did.
Supporters sent 32 letters to the court asking that Kenny be given probation. But federal judge Robert Rossiter told Kenny she held a position of trust and she only came forward when confronted with discrepancies. The judge ordered Kenny to self-surrender on a date to be picked by the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Her attorney asked that she be sent to a facility that's as close as possible to the Omaha metro area. At the federal courthouse in downtown Omaha, Mike McKnight, First Alert 6.
The judge ordered Joya Kenny to pay almost $500,000 in restitution. That includes about $40,000 above the amount she embezzled because the school had to hire an accounting firm to straighten out the books.
Kenny has already paid $80,000 back by refinancing her house, and she promised the judge she'll make things right.